Welcome, everyone. Our Friday afternoon series continues. Debbie McRae is joining me here today. I just said before I hit record that if you're watching this recording, come join us live on Friday afternoons. You'll find the information on the Seeking Integrity website. So come join, come ask your questions, this or any of the other webinars. So I also mentioned that I do point out Debbie's materials often for people because her information is so practical and useful for this journey, particularly for partners, but it really is helpful. People have asked, are the webinars just for one person or the other? And I think it's really good information for both of you to know. One of the things I think of with addiction is there's so much secrecy and things like that. So having the transparency of this is what the partners are, this are suggested for this partners, or this is what is suggested for the betraying partner, so that they have information. Just having that context and understanding, can help set a foundation for things. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Debbie.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about from crisis to growth, and these are the stages a betrayed partner goes through as they're healing from betrayal trauma. So oftentimes I have betrayed partners that I'm working with ask me a series of questions about their own healing. So one of the things they ask is it even possible to heal from betrayal? Because when they're in the thick of it, it just doesn't seem like it's even going to be a part of their reality. Another question they ask is, why does betrayal hurt so much? And how long does it take before I can get out of this hurt and feel like I'm back to normal again? So I often see a couple of scenarios show up in my office. The first one is the betrayed partner who might say to me, I don't think I'll ever get over this. I'm never going to get back to normal. Or I feel like my identity now is only that of a betrayed partner and I'll never be myself again. I also have the betraying partners saying in frustration at times, or even in moments of shame, something like, you should be over this by now, or how much longer are you going to be angry at me, or are you ever going to get better? And so it's helpful if we can understand that the research shows that there are 3 specific stages that a betrayed partner moves through. And healing from betrayal doesn't take just months. We don't get over it in 2 to 3 months. It takes years to recover. This is because betrayal impacts the brain and the attachment system in the same way that trauma exposure does. So that's why we call it betrayal trauma. Also, recovery is not linear. Recovery is oftentimes 3 steps forward and a step back. And so it takes time. And if you can understand these 3 different stages for healing, you're going to be able to, first of all, see where you're at if you're a betrayed partner. And also, if you are the betraying partner, it's going to help you understand where your partner's at so you can have some more compassion and offer more support to the betrayed partner in their healing. So the first stage that a betrayed partner goes through is shock and survival. So as we focus on healing this stage, the focus and the goal is to create safety and emotional stabilization. So this begins as soon as discovery or disclosure occurs. So this phase can actually last anywhere from a couple of months up to even 8-9 months. This takes several months because the nervous system all of a sudden is going to go into immediate dysregulation due to the attachment injury. It's pretty severe. The brain moves into threat detection. Now, a few months back, I did a webinar on what happens to the brain, specifically going through all the different steps when that attachment injury occurs. So you might want to look back and watch that to give you some more details on what actually happens. But what happens is the brain moves into a threat detection mode, and it's now looking for constant danger. And everything within the relationship now signals danger to the brain. And so the betrayed partner is going to move into some acute trauma responses. So this is normal for an attachment injury, but it's a very intense stage for the betrayed partner because there's going to be things like hypervigilance. There's going to be obsessive ruminating thinking. There's going to be emotional swings. There'll be sleep disruption. There's going to be hypovigilance, maybe where they shut down more. There could be panic. There will be emotional flooding. There's going to be intrusive thoughts, and there's going to be evidence of severe physical distress. These are not signs that the betrayed partner is overreacting. This is the nervous system attempting to regain predictability after the trust has been shattered. So progress in this stage is going to look like there will be moments of emotional stabilization that begin to appear when there are waves of distress. So the healing tasks for this particular stage is going to be to establish safety to the nervous system. We're going to work on reducing the nervous system's responses like the overwhelm or the anger or the hypervigilance, which is fight and flight, or the underwhelm, which is the system shutting down, the betrayed partner shutting down, which is a freeze state. So we want to start working on daily stabilization, emotional regulation, creating safety in the system so you don't feel like you're constantly on high alert. During this particular phase, we want to gather accurate information so the betrayed partner understands what's going on for them. And then a really important part and the task in this particular stage is to find support because we need other people like a qualified therapist, a support group to help with that nervous system regulation. So like I mentioned, the goal here in this particular stage is emotional stabilization. It's not about forgiveness. It's not about making important decisions. It's not about repairing the relationship. Right now, we have to help the brain feel safe. So it's safety first. So what do? Well, like I said, you've got to get a really good therapist that understands betrayal trauma, that understands the nervous system and the brain. And the first thing they're going to do is they're going to educate you on what's happening. What is this trauma about? How does it impact you? You're going to learn what is normal as far as betrayal trauma goes. And it helps to normalize that what you're experiencing and how you're reacting is a part of the betrayal trauma itself. My recommendation is that you find some credible podcasts. There's so many here on sex and healing relationship. There's drop-in groups that you can go to. So try to understand why you're experiencing what you're experiencing through psychoeducation. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to start focusing on stabilizing your nervous system. So with this, you're going to create your own healing plan. It's like I tell betrayed partners, we need to create routines and rituals now that support your nervous system. So one of the things I teach them about is your window of tolerance. So your window of tolerance is something the brain has, which means it's my bandwidth for how much stress I can handle before my brain decides that it's got to move from prefrontal cortex, that executive functioning part of the brain, to the mid-back part of the brain into the limbic region where the amygdala's fire and threat is sensed by the brain. And now I'm going to go into that fight, flight, or freeze response. So the betrayed partner's got to figure out what skills and tools work to help increase that window of tolerance or to help them move from having that limbic response to reconnecting to prefrontal cortex. So it's going to be things like some grounding exercises that I'll mention in a moment. It's going to be on really tuning in and understanding what's going on internally in your body. So it's going to be things that we do day to day to help support the body. It's going to be things like doing daily tasks that support the physical body, tasks each day that support your emotional health, that helps strengthen relational connection, that helps support spiritual or feeding your spirit. So important that that's part of the plan, that every day you're doing something to help yourself. It's understanding that you've got skills and tools that help regulate the nervous system so that when the nervous system dysregulates, you automatically have a plan in place and know what to do. I talk about my groups and my clients putting together emotional first aid kits that has things in that little bag or a box or whatever you want to put things into that will help you regulate. So it can be everything from something that smells good and brings you back into your body that way. So it could be an essential oil. It could be lotion that smells good. It could be something that you taste. So it could be chocolate or sour candy, something you touch like worry stones. So anything that's going to help you get back into your body when the nervous system is trying to tell you that you're under danger, you're experiencing danger. You want to create a trigger plan as part of your healing plan. So what are you going to do if you get triggered? Are you going to do certain breathing exercises? Are you going to do the 5 senses exercise? Are you going to reach out to somebody? Are you going to listen to music? What are you going to do? So this is an overall plan that helps you not only day to day, but also when you have a trigger. So some of the things that you're going to do as you're regulating is you're going to do some grounding exercises. So I love the 5 senses exercise. So what we're doing is we're trying to engage your 5 senses to help when you're dysregulated because it brings you back into your body. So what you're going to do is identify 5 things that you see in your immediate area. I like to add a descriptive term. So it might be that I see green grass or I see the blue sky. It makes us really start to think about what is in my environment. The 4th thing is to tune in with the touch of your body. So what is touching my body currently? What do I feel touching my body? So it might be my feet on the ground or the seat underneath me or the hair on my face. The 3rd thing is going to be 3 things that you hear. So I have to tune in and listen to what's in my environment. The 2nd thing is going to be something I smell or imagine smelling. And the last thing is going to be something that I taste or imagine tasting. So that is a really great exercise for when you're dysregulated that brings somebody back into their body and calms them down. I like to combine it with 2 feet on the ground, cross body tapping, so you're feeling your body as well. That bilateral tapping is also very regulating. Another thing you can do is you can put on headphones. You can do bilateral music that moves back and forth. That's also going to help you regulate. I love breathing exercises. There's some exercises that are we use for trauma breathing, like the box breathing, where you're doing the deep belly breathing very slowly. So you're going to count in your head as you breathe in for 4. You're going to hold it for 4. You're going to exhale for 4 slowly and hold it for 4. And you keep doing that until you feel the body begin to calm down and regulate. You can even do something as simple as breathing in through your nose for 4 and out for 6 to 8, just very slowly, because as we breathe out slowly, it helps to calm the nervous system. Another thing that you're going to work on in this particular stage is finding safety boundaries. So safety boundaries help us create the safety we need to emotionally regulate. So there's going to be some external boundaries that you'll put in place. You can do this with the help of your therapist, with your group that you're attending to for healing. And the external boundaries for the betrayed partner or the betraying partner might be things like, I need a formal therapeutic disclosure so that I know exactly what's going on. And of course, we do that through those specific steps. Another thing might be that I need to do check-ins on a regular basis so I have some real time information. I know what's exactly happening in the here and now. The betrayed partner will also identify their own internal boundaries. So it might be that when they get emotionally flooded, they take a pause to a conversation they might be having with the betraying partner. The other thing that is a really good area to put an internal boundary in place around is safety seeking. So, safety seeking is moving into some behaviors that the betrayed partner will do in order to see if the betraying partner is safe. So they might excessively check emails. They might go and check their partner's phone. Maybe we do it in secret. It might be that I'm looking for anything that signals to me that my betraying partner isn't safe. So when we put a boundary around it, we put into place what is a healthy safety seeking behavior? Meaning that when I do that safety seeking behavior, it actually regulates my nervous system, as opposed to when I do this safety seeking, it causes me to dysregulate. And when I'm in a dysregulated state, I'm more likely to get angry with my betraying partner, and there's going to be more disconnection to the attachment. So there's a lot of different moving parts and pieces to this particular stage. So it's really important that you don't do it alone. You need to find somebody who can guide you and assist you, and make sure that you get somebody who is qualified. Even this past week, had somebody come in and say to me, I wish I'd gotten help sooner, the right kind of help sooner. I felt like I was spinning my wheels for so long, and it was a really difficult place to be in. Okay, the second stage of healing is going to be that stage where there's trauma processing, and we start to reintegrate kind of who we are, kind of a feeling of self. So this is going to start about 6 months post-discovery disclosure, and it will last up to a couple of years. So as the stabilization increases, then the partner's going to move into processing their trauma. So this particular phase of healing feels pretty long. It's emotionally heavy because the focus of this particular stage is on moving into the deeper emotions, moving through them, trying to understand them, understanding the impact that it has had on you, the betrayed partner. And then as we move out to the other side, trying to understand the meaning of those emotions and behaviors. So in this phase, we're not trying to get rid of emotions. We're trying to experience the emotions in a safe, healthy way rather than being consumed by them. So in this phase, this is when the emotional reality of betrayal really fully emerges. So this is where we talk about, as the shock decreases, we have the grief that comes in. Anger is also another real heavy, intense emotion that is experienced during this phase. And it starts to come up because at this point, the brain is starting to feel safe enough to process these more difficult emotions. So instead of feeling like the betrayal is still happening, the brain is learning to understand that the experience is something that occurred in the past rather than it's occurring right now. So what we're going to do as we move into those tasks for healing is we're going to start to identify the loss and the grief that's associated with the betrayal. And then you're going to start to process those trauma emotions and the events of the betrayal. So you're going to do that with the help of a therapist, and we'll talk about some of the modalities that you use for that. As you're working through some of these emotions, you're going to identify also maybe some of the shame and the self-blame that's associated with your betrayal. So you're going to start moving out of labeling yourself in negative ways. You're going to start working on building that internal sense of self and regaining trust in yourself. And you start to, towards the end of this particular stage, you start to see that there's some meaning in the betrayal, not that you are happy about it happening and you don't have to accept that this is something that you deserve to have happen to you. That's not what we're saying. But I do see my betrayed partners all of a sudden start to see, hey, I'm so much stronger than I ever thought I was. So that becomes to them something that they're taking from their betrayal that has significant meaning. I will see the betrayed partner move from questioning, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? To, okay, what can I do now to help myself heal from this experience? So the focus of this stage, like I said, is going to be integrating that trauma experiencing and having it become part of your story rather than your current reality. So we are going to work on things like reprocessing the trauma. So this is where you work with your therapist on things like EMDR, or using something like brain spotting or accelerated resolution therapy. As you're working with your therapist, they're going to teach you how to work with your body and recognize what you're feeling in your body, making the connection maybe between what's going on as far as your thoughts and your feelings and how you feel it in your body. You can also do something like internal family systems work, where you understand those protective parts of your personality that are helping you with the betrayal. And so you're starting to see a decrease as you're working through the trauma reprocessing in the physical and emotional symptoms that you experience during those early days of betrayal. Another thing that happens is grief processing. We've got to start working on the grief. So oftentimes I will work with groups on identifying their losses, and they are then going to take those losses and they will do an emotional expression work, which I have them do a grief and loss project, and they present it to each other in group, which is a really awesome way to bear witness to your loss and to put words to your grief and have other people validate your experience. Another thing that helps with grief processing is if you're doing a formal therapeutic disclosure and you're doing the impact statement part of a formal therapeutic disclosure, you're actually, as you're putting that letter together, you are processing some of those aspects of your grief. Another thing you'll work on is some shame reduction work. So with this, you start to recognize, are there any parts of my own shame that's coming up because I'm a betrayed partner? Is there some shame-based beliefs that I have about me that I need to work on healing? Another thing is, am I carrying around any of the shame that's actually not mine? It belongs to my betraying partner. So we move into reducing shame by doing a lot of self-compassion work. So we focus on that self-compassion statement or reframing with self-compassion. So we do that by doing the self-compassion exercise, which is identifying that this is a moment of suffering and identifying the suffering that you're experiencing. Then you normalize the experience by recognizing I'm not alone in this. Other betrayed partners feel just like I do. And then the third step in this self-compassion exercise is to offer ourselves some kindness. May I remind myself that this is just a moment, that I'm doing the best I can possibly do, and that I am healing, and that healing takes time, and that makes me good enough, or that makes me an effective in doing my recovery work. Another thing that can be helpful too in this particular stage is doing some healthy anger releases. So we can do it several ways. One way is to write about the anger. So doing some journaling. I had my anger journal that I had as I went through betrayal. So when my anger came up, I would get that out and I would write and write and write until I felt the anger release. We can move anger out of our body. We can do that through physical movement. We can do that by taking a pool noodle and whacking a tree trunk and make some noise as you're doing that. And then after we do that, we work on regulating. So that means I'm going to move into some breathing exercises. I'm going to move into self-care. And so getting the anger out of our body is also some work that you can do. And working with your therapist on this is a wise thing to do rather than trying to do it alone. You need to really understand some safe and effective ways to do that. I also love journaling during this phase because you're going to start journaling the growth that you're seeing in yourself. You're even going to maybe question and write about who am I now, right? How am I seeing myself change? What do I need now for safety? What do I need now for my own personal growth? And right now in this moment, what really matters to me in my own healing? So really starting to integrate the trauma experience into your life and into who you are. The third stage is where reconnection occurs, and we're going to work on post-traumatic growth. So the goal of this stage is to work on repairing the relationship with the betraying partner, along with making the focus of your healing about the growth that you're seeing, and then what you're going to do as you're moving forward with your betraying partner to create this post-traumatic growth. So betrayal at this stage is no longer organizing every day of your life. You have now integrated your story because you've done all the trauma reprocessing into an experience you've had in your life rather than it being something that defines your identity. So you still remember what happened, but it no longer controls your nervous system or your daily reactions. So for me, as I reprocessed my betrayal trauma, I felt this neutrality. I could talk about it, but I didn't feel my nervous system getting triggered. You see that emotional regulation is consistent. Your clarity about what's going on internally for you, the clarity about your experience increases, and you begin to trust yourself again. You trust your perceptions. You're more grounded in your choices, and you start to rebuild self-trust in this particular area. The last webinar I did, we talked about how do you know if your betraying partner is trustworthy? Well, you start to actually trust yourself in what you're seeing them do. So you're able to step into trusting your partner a little more. You start to tune in more to your intuition. Many betrayed partners lose their intuition as a result of the betrayal. So now you're going to be doing some things where you follow your intuition, you trust your intuition. And then you start to expand your identity beyond the betrayal. You're not just a betrayed partner. And so you start to begin to live a life where there's more fulfillment. So what are some of the things you do during this stage? Well, you're going to do attachment repair work through couples therapy. Find the right kind of couples therapist who understands betrayal trauma, who has the skill set to help you do the attachment repair work. As part of that attachment repair work, you're going to do a lot of repair conversations. There's going to be emotional attunement exercises. The betrayed partner is going to experience empathy, possibly using something like the AVR formula, which is acknowledging the pain and the hurt, and then validating the emotions, and then reassuring the betrayed partner of the work that you're doing to be trustworthy and as part of your own recovery work. Then you're going to work on together on identifying what are the boundaries we have in place as a couple. Now we have boundaries happening along the way, but with this, we're going to take our values now and we're going to get real clarity on what the boundaries we have in place around those values. So these are going to be boundaries that promote connection and intimacy. So we're going to work a little bit more on the intimacy aspects of the relationship, including not only the physical intimacy, the emotional intimacy, and the sexual intimacy. And so boundaries in this particular stage are really about creating self-respect and respect within the relationship, about creating that safety, and they're not boundaries that we put in place out of fear. And then you're going to move into doing some post-traumatic growth work, which means you're going to come up with activities and things you do together, and also that you do as a betrayed partner that help you make sense of the betrayal. I have had betrayed partners actually go back to grad school because as their experience of betrayal and doing therapy, they felt a passion for helping other people going through the same experience. I have other people decide that as a couple, they're going to go out and they're going to do things like service projects together. So they might go work at an animal shelter together. They might find a cause that they both feel passionate about. It could even be something as simple as doing pickleball together and connecting on a physical level and making that part of their post-traumatic growth. But what we do when we have post-traumatic growth is we are envisioning a future together. So we start working on planning that future and the things we're going to do together. So some of the things that you can do to help yourself is, again, I love the journaling for tuning back in to your intuition. The other thing is making sure that even though we're in that post-traumatic growth and the reconnection phase, triggers can still happen. So making sure that together as a couple, you have a trigger plan in place. As a betrayed partner in this stage, you're going to start to notice when you start to get activated, and you're going to be much quicker at knowing what to do as far as self-care, staying present, staying in your body, and you're going to find that you have the ability to react rather than to respond rather than to react. So in closing, I just want to say that healing does take time. I wish we could heal in 2 or 3 months, but the reality is it takes several years. Betrayal healing is not something that you can rush. It's not something that you can force, because remember, we're working with the nervous system. The nervous system has to move through the shock. It's got to move through the processing, the integration, and we've got to allow it time to begin to regulate again. So if you see yourself in any of these stages, recognize that you are still healing. You're in the process of healing. If you feel like you're stuck in a stage, then maybe see if there's something you can do to make shifts and changes. Maybe you need to bring it to the attention of your therapist. Maybe you need to find a group to join so you have more support. Healing really is about connecting to yourself. It's not about fixing the relationship. It's about really connecting to your voice, your needs, your sense of safety. And remember that there is going to be pain. You're going to experience it, but I promise you that as you do this work, the day is going to come where that pain diminishes. And what you're going to begin to see is that there's been growth as a result of the experience. So I'm going to challenge you as I finish today that just check in and see, where are you at as a betrayed partner right now in your healing? Or if you're a betraying partner, check in and see where your betrayed partner's at. And then ask, is there one small step I can take today to help me move forward in my healing? So that's what I have today, and I hope that I've given you some things that are helpful.
You always do. There isn't a question, but it says no question yet. Just wanted to say hi, Debbie. I've missed your voice and its wisdom, and I agree. I take a ton of notes, and I'm grateful that you're on recordings saying you had your anger journal, because I often say I'm not telling tales because I use that you had a separate journal to place that, and I think it's really important to have, that safe place to, I'm going to put this here. So it isn't here going back and forth and back and forth. I'm putting it here. Now my brain knows it's there. It's safe. I don't have to try to remember it, so you can start to get it out. I love that. I was laughing because you talked about the smelling. I have two different things here right by my desk. So, that I can grab, so that all the things that you talk about, I do to regulate. I do the five senses. I do the breathing. And I share those with people, and it doesn't matter if they're in this area, or I was with a group of people last night and they were talking about sleep issues and all of these things. And I said, have you tried, some breathing or grounding exercises rather than so I'm sharing it with them. So these are things that are helpful regardless of, if you're in the throes of all of this. Really, most key and important. I love that you talk about having an emergency kit, because if I'm starting to feel dysregulated, it's so much more helpful for me if I'm grabbing my little smelly thing and going, oh, I'm going to focus on that. Or I've got two. Which one should I pick? Guess what? My brain's automatically going to, I have to make a decision about which smelly thing I'm going to smell, and it's taking me off of the other thing. So it's like all of those things then help me, regulate. I have shoes on right now, but normally, I'm sitting around in bare feet a lot, because just having my feet on the ground, there's something about that where I pay attention, and having my feet grounded helps me feel grounded. So, I love the pool noodles, and I love that pool noodles aren't going to break a tree, and so find things that aren't going to hurt anything else, and yeah, getting that stuff out of our bodies is so important. One of the things, and it was interesting because Rebecca Hogue did a special edition webinar yesterday, and she started introducing herself, and then she backed up and she said, I'm a human being. And I was like, thank you. Because, it's so easy to get caught up in the labels. I'm a betrayed partner, and having the identity of this is who I am now, rather than I'm all of these things. And, I think that's part of your whole, I'm processing the trauma. And so that's part of my story, but it isn't the be all end all of who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I know when I was working through my betrayal, you do feel, and I want to normalize it, you feel like you're never going to get through it. You feel like it's never you're going to get out of it. You're always going to feel like you're a betrayed partner. But I had to consciously choose at one point in my betrayal to stop staying in my story, because I kept repeating my story, right? Telling everybody my story, going through my story. And one day it dawned on me, the longer and the more often I tell my story, right? I'm staying in the energy of all of that trauma and betrayal, but I'm getting stuck there. And I'm starting to identify with that story, which is I'm a betrayed partner. So for me, I did work with my therapist on, I realized I need to step out of this story, help me figure this out. And for me, one of the things I started doing was to kind of let go of that label of betrayed partner is when people asked me how I was doing, and they wanted to know about my story or parts of my story, I just kindly declined. And some people I felt close enough to, I said, you know what? I don't talk about that anymore because I've made a choice to step out of my story because it was starting to become who I thought I am. And so that was a really helpful thing for me. And I started focusing on other aspects of my life that kind of defined who I am. Like you said, I'm just a human being, right? Or, my case, I was a mother, or, I'm an artist. Maybe I'm a musician,
And maybe
and I
not
like
or,
that.
and I'm a human being. Because
Yeah.
she said because she
Yes.
started saying and then she was like, wait, I'm a human being and I'm a
And
therapist and
yes.
so, and I was like,
Yes.
yes, that's the thing. We are
Mhm.
like so defining, and like you said, mom. I mean, like when you have little kids, like that's what your whole identity can. I'm not saying for everyone, but you can. I could easily get caught up in
Mhm.
mom, 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 mom. And I
Mhm.
had to learn, wait, I'm way more
Yeah.
than just mom. I'm
Yeah.
mom to this kiddo, but that's just one aspect of who I am. And I feel like with betrayal, that can be such a negative label. I know other people, in fact, I was talking to somebody and we suggested having a journal where you put like the anger, all of the negative goes into one journal. And that's not one we go back and read and read and read and read. And then have a separate journal, a pretty colored one where putting good things in it, like gratitude, or like the sun is shining today, or whatever it is. That one, or good memories.
Mhm.
That one we can reread, but otherwise, it feels like I've been seeing so much of this where that reinforcement of like yeah, I'm stuck in the trauma because all I'm talking about is the trauma and the negative. So
Mhm.
so shifting, like it's there, not negating any of that, and
Mhm.
working to look at what else is there. And I think that those shifts, our brains are amazing and very simplistic. And you've talked before, and I did pull the betrayal brain. We made a podcast out of it as well as the webinar, so I put the link for both of those in there. And that was in one of the podcasts that was it had higher numbers. So it's that one was resonating with some people too. And then Debbie's doing a work group starting again in March on healing and empowerment. Those are boundary things. And I mentioned earlier, I had lunch with a partner therapist today, and we were talking about like how challenging it is for boundaries, that a lot of partners didn't learn them growing up, and then they had a really good manipulative addict telling them to ignore anything that they set up that would help provide them safety with all that. So learning what boundaries are and aren't, and how to hold them, and what a real consequence would be, not making somebody else do something, but what am I going to do if or when this happens. That's how we start to shift. I do want to ask you, because we don't have questions, and we would welcome questions, but you
Yeah.
talked about having couples boundaries,
Mhm.
and you talked about they promote connection. So can you give a few examples of what could be a couple's boundaries?
Okay, so couples boundaries could include things like when we are starting to experience disconnection, we will stop in that moment, take a pause, regulate, then come back and maybe do knee to knee reflective
Okay.
communication. And then as we're doing reflective communication, remember the one person's talking, the other person's reflecting back what they hear, right? And then we move from that into using some AVR so that rather than staying in the state of disconnection and fighting each other's perceptions or the beliefs of each other fighting each other, now what we're going to do is we're making a choice that I want to really understand you. I want to get on the same page with you. And then I want to validate you, right? I want to acknowledge, right, your pain. I want to validate your feelings. And so now we've got a plan for when there's disconnection. That's a couple's boundary. Another couple's boundary might be when we're out in public, right? And the betrayed partner gets triggered. What
Hmm.
are we going to do together to help each other, right? How is my betraying partner going to help me regulate? How am I, as the betrayed partner, going to regulate or ask for help? So we have a specific plan in place. That's another couple's boundary. Another couple's boundary might be that when we're out in public and we are associating with people, right, that we have certain boundaries. It might be that I feel safest if, right, we stay together as we're moving through the crowd. So it'll be something along those lines, right? And how we do that. It might be just, even sharing the work you do. We have boundaries around that, right? And of course, we always have check ins and things like that and what that looks like. So, those are some ideas of some couples' boundaries that we do together.
That's really helpful, and I don't think that is talked about, often.
Mhm.
It's because like you have boundaries and I have boundaries, and but navigating that space of and it feels very affirming to go, we are doing this together,
Mhm.
because it will help our relationship. So it is forward thinking for the relationship
Mhm.
that we are looking to move forward together, not just hold the, I've got my boundaries, you got your boundaries, and I agree that healthy relationships do have boundaries. The addiction thrives in a boundaryless state, both for the addict partner, but also pushing on the betrayed partner to ignore any safety, and needs for safety with boundaries as well. So
Mhm.
somebody's got to have questions. You guys pick her brain. She's brilliant. So
I don't know about that. I want to talk about stuck. As we were talking about
please.
different stages, if you find yourself stuck in any of these stages, let's say you've been in stage 2 for 5 years or 4 years, my recommendation would be to really sit down and get some clarity with, okay, take an inventory maybe of what you're currently doing to help you in your recovery. Maybe even listen to some of these webinars that talk about healing and the different aspects of healing. So gather some ideas and then put together maybe an action plan that might include, if you don't have a therapist that really has the skills set, like to do EMDR or brain spotting or accelerated resolution therapy, then maybe you seek one out that can help you on the different aspects of your betrayal. So get some clarity, do something different. If you've never been in a group to work on healing your betrayal, and even though you might be 4 years into it, it's never too late. So do something like that because you want to get unstuck. It doesn't feel good to be stuck in that stage 1 and stage 2.
And we do have a question, but I have a question for you on the
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking of several partners that I experienced this week, and I was like, they're stuck. I just don't know if they're stuck in stage 1 or stage 2. And it has been years, and I'm not diagnosing, I'm not judging. I'm just like, it's sad to me because like the hurt and the anger and the name calling of their betraying partner, all of those things, it's just it's so difficult to watch as someone who is such a proponent of healing. For even if you stay, whether you stay in the relationship or not, whether the betraying partner gets help or not, I want people to get help and healing, so do
Mhm.
you find people tend to get more stuck in stage 1 or 2, or like what do you, or maybe if they're coming to you, they're not as stuck. I don't know.
Uh,
No, I mean serious. I like you.
well,
You help.
yeah. here's what I see typically happens when people are stuck, especially betrayed partners. A lot of times they're stuck in their stories. They're stuck in their thoughts. So our minds are so powerful. And so what happens is, again, I need to do a webinar on the different areas where I see people get stuck. But I think the biggest thing is what we tell ourselves. So remember, the brain works by taking bits and pieces of data, creating a narrative and stories. Well, the brain has that negative bias, and if I've got this betrayed partner who's done all these terrible, horrible things, my brain wants to obsess on it. And I find most betrayed partners that are stuck and they keep getting emotionally dysregulated. When I usually kind of narrow it down, it's because they're in their stories or their narratives. So we have to learn how to stop those and reframe them. So that's just one of the big areas I see.
So someone said, could we get a PDF or a copy of the visual of the stages of with descriptions? I don't know if you've got that. This will be posted, this webinar. That's going to the second one. This webinar will be posted on our on the link with the previously recorded webinars, probably on Monday because it's Friday. There lots of people watch and listen and back them up again and things like that. But I don't know if you have a PDF.
I don't have a PDF. I
Okay.
guess I could cut and paste and do one. I just wish I had the time.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah, takes a
I'm
good.
gonna invite you, and if you want to make a PDF of it, send it to me because other people probably would like it too. TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. Okay, but I'm going to
I
post in the
you.
chat
I
one more
might hire you to
time.
do my stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Should boundaries have consequences linked to them and listed for partner?
um, yes, boundaries typically have consequences, and I encourage you to take my boundaries class because
Yes.
boundaries is much broader than you think. We really get into a lot of different aspects on betrayal that is so helpful. But remember, when we have a boundary, there's three parts of a boundary, right? There's the boundary itself, like you said, there's the consequence, and then there's the follow through. So a consequence is going to be, if you do this, then I'm going to do this. So the consequence is something you, the person who's putting the boundary in place, will do if the other person violates your boundary. So it might be that if you have a slip and don't report it within the agreed upon 24 hours, then I am going to ask you to sleep in another bed until I feel safe enough for you to come back. Or if you choose not to sleep in another bed, then I will sleep in another bed until it feels safe enough to reconnect. So typically, a boundary does have a consequence. Is it always verbalized? Well, for example, I'll tell you a time when it might not be verbalized, and that might be that when your partner is maybe being disrespectful to you in a conversation, and you might say to them, I need to end this conversation right now because you're being disrespectful, and then you step away. So that is a consequence. I guess ending the conversation right now is a consequence, but typically I like to, as I'm working on boundaries, right, understand the situation that you need the boundary around, identify what the boundary is using a boundary format that works for you. So a simple one is, if you do this, then I will do this, right? And then the third column, it is the consequence. I know I talked about in last week's boundaries group that sometimes boundaries are a natural consequence. And that is that if you speak to me disrespectfully, then I'm going to step back and no longer have a lot of interaction with you. So then the natural consequence is I'm going to feel disconnection and I'm going to feel lonely. So yes, boundaries do have consequences. And I think one of the biggest focuses that we have in our boundaries groups is identifying the appropriate consequences that are easy to follow through with, because that's the hardest part of the boundary.
So in that situation, if I've told you there are times when we're having conversations and I feel disrespected. If you do that again, then my boundary is I'm going to step away from. I need safety. I'm not doing this well. She's so good at this. I'm not. So I'm working on it. But if we have the conversation in advance and say, like when this happens, I feel completely disrespected. I need to take care of myself. Therefore, if if that happens again, I'm going to I'm going to call a timeout and I'm going to walk away. So
Yeah.
then you're still like you're still sharing, you're just not sharing it in the moment. It's a
Hmm.
I'm telling you, if this happens again or when this happens again, this is what I'm going to do. So I mean, even with that one, it could be clearly stated so that there's, I'm telling you what I'm doing. um and it can be, I'm not abandoning you, I'm going to go do this, whatever you need to do, however you want to follow through on that. But it still is, I'm taking care of me, because this, like, this, I'm not here to get disrespected all over the place, and I'm going to take care of me.
And the other thing too is a consequence is about creating safety for yourself.
Yes,
So
yeah.
that's the other thing. It's not punishment, it's not control, it's not having power over somebody. It's that in this moment you're no longer safe. So here's what I'm going to do to create safety for myself. And so when we put it into the framework of, hey, I'm doing this to create safety, then it totally changes, I think, me, the boundary setter, and then I have to implement the consequence as well. Makes it easier for me to do that.
Okay, so then the next question. I'm the betrayer 4 years in. My wife is a therapist, but has sought no help for herself. I have struggled to create the safety she needs for healing. Can my wife heal without getting outside support? And how can I be encouraging about this? I have work I need to do to create more stability.
Okay, well, first of all, I would recommend that you continue to do your work to create more stability. So get a lot of clarity on that. And by stability, is that mean stability in your recovery work? Is that stability in the relationship with her? So kind of get some clarity on that as well. Um, I am a firm believer that because of my own experience and that we heal through human connection. That is just my approach to life. And we have to find the right person to connect with to help us in our healing. So I do know that I've mentioned this multiple times in podcasts, but back when I experienced betrayal 20 something years ago, there wasn't this field. And so I had to figure out how to heal on my own. And it was hard. And the reason that I think I did my healing was I happened to finally find a trauma therapist that my regular therapist referred me to. And that woman actually had experienced betrayal. So she could validate all the different things and she could help me with the different aspects of it and help me move through my betrayal and healing from it. So I do believe that we need other people to help us heal. It's scary. We're very vulnerable. I know as I run groups, I'm bringing together strangers in the beginning that are now going to share parts of their life that nobody knows about or even stories that they've never shared before. And it can be really, really scary. But I see this beautiful transformation take place that as groups come together and they start to work with each other, that they start to heal. They learn from each other. They're learning concepts about healing. And so maybe for you, the encouragement is that you want her just validate. I think I would use AVR. Acknowledge how scary and frightening it must be to have to, as a therapist, go and get help, in this particular area. And that you recognize that it's because of your acting out and your betrayal that she's having to do that. And then validate her feelings. It must be very scary. It must feel very lonely. And then just reassure her that you're going to continue doing the work for your recovery and maybe tell her specifically how and ask her if she's willing to do anything in that area for herself and just really focus on, wanting her to get to a better place. So those are some of my thoughts off the top of my head.
So she's not alone.
Yeah.
We have a drop-in group for female
Oh.
professionals who are mental health professionals, medical professionals, or legal lawyer or judge. And it's not about anonymity. It's because they're sending clients, patients to groups. So it's like you need a safe place. And for therapists in particular, you're a caregiver. So you're caregiving, you're helping other people that come into your office. That's your profession. and you're not getting, you don't have a place to get nurtured. So it can feel really compartmentalized. Like, this is my work and I'm showing up to do my work and I'm doing a really good job with my clients, but I'm not, I think like doctors aren't good patients. I think therapists cannot be good clients because, it's like, no, my focus is over here and I'm doing all of this and not taking, the care that they need. I share actually often. It's like, if you're right, your behaviors did this, so you guys are in a car accident. You're driving. She's not. She's a passenger. And she's hurt. Like, there's medical attention needed. You know, I would assume, she would want to go to the hospital and get the care that she needs. This is similar, and to hold those wounds, and just try to stick a band-aid on them, that it doesn't heal. It doesn't heal from the inside. But the work that partners do, that Thursday group is a group of professionals, women, and there's separate groups for female addicts and separate group for male addicts that are password protected. Those are the only three groups that are password protected. People have to verify that they are appropriate for those groups. But those are a great place with
Mm.
other people who are in the same situation. But I know for some partners who are therapists, there's that extra layer of shame: is, how could I have not seen this? How could I have missed this? I do this for a living. And because we are really good as addicts at manipulating and things, and partners are trusting that, we are in this together, not you've got a whole hidden life. So I hope, she can TAMI at Seeking Integrity. I just need verification. And I will gladly provide that password. But there's lots of people who are in that situation. And Debbie, you talked about, people go back to school. There's a lot of people who have gotten into the field and are doing this work because they have worked very hard on healing their trauma and want to pass that on to others. So there's a lot of people that have experienced it as part of their story. So. Okay, so my struggle is I've had staggered disclosure the last 4 years and find SA counselors have different views on aspects of disclosure. I feel stuck between the first two stages. Which questions should I ask SA counselors to be sure we are aligned? It's a big question, I know, and it is, but it's a great question. And you're right. We have a peer case consultation group every week with Dr. Rob. And the topic that comes up the most frequently of all the topics we talk about, we've been doing it for years, is formal therapeutic disclosure. So even within the trained therapists, people have different protocols for doing it. The therapists are individuals. So what are your thoughts about, like getting stuck in stages and possibly what to ask?
Well, yeah, first of all, I think that on the disclosure aspect of it, I'm a firm believer in finding somebody who really understands the process. So, CSAT therapists understand there are specific steps that we do. It's organized a certain way. It needs to be done to make the best outcome possible, which is to provide all the information a betrayed partner needs, right? To help them put words to the impact it's had on them, and then for the betraying partner to then move into doing a restitution accountability letter. So you need to find therapists that work well together. So a couple of things that you'd want to do is, first of all, find out how much training they've had in doing a formal therapeutic disclosure. Again, I like a CSAT therapist. I would also prefer that as you're interviewing a therapist, that they have that prodependence, therapeutic framework that they use. The other thing is, I like to also, if I'm working with a betrayed partner, I want to know that their betraying partner is working with somebody who is partner sensitive. So they really understand betrayal trauma. Because I find that when I do therapeutic disclosures with another therapist like that we have a very positive outcome. It's hard work, but we go through that process and it ends up being something that is very healing. And so you might even ask if you are working with your own therapist, who they might recommend. Sometimes I've had partners do that. Do you have a therapist that you would recommend my husband go to? We want to work on this. They may not have their therapist just yet. So then that's, idyllic. The other thing too is finding a therapist who's also willing to work with the other person's therapist so that we can really coordinate that formal therapeutic disclosure. So those are the kinds of things that I would ask a therapist, first of all, and how many disclosures they've done. Because if they've only done one or two, we all start out only doing one or two. I get that. But, if they're well trained and they understand the different aspects of it, it makes all the difference in the world. The last thing I want to have happen is to go into a formal therapeutic disclosure and have it go really, really bad. So you want to make sure that you yourself also has a therapist that understands that and will take you through all the steps, because there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. We don't want to rush it. So we've got to pace it. We've got to do it just right. And it will help you move out of being stuck once you get all the information.
So the caveat is, yes, everybody's got to start with the first one. And when I'm talking, I talk to lots of therapists. I'm asking them, are you doing disclosures? When if they say I haven't done one yet, I'm finding out who they collaborate with, and who their supervisor is. Because, if they've got a good supervisor that is going to help them navigate that space, and the other person is has more experience, then then it's maybe a little more deferred to the lead of with the other person. That can go really well. So it isn't just like, oh, you have to have 100 behind you. It's like what structure is in place to support them helping you, and that can go really well. And sometimes therapists are new to working with each other, so it can be a little bit of that. But like Debbie said, there's a lot of coordination that goes on behind the scenes, and preparation. So if they're in good communication, and if here's my big thing, if the focus is on helping you, the clients, with this, and not you need to do it my way. This is what comes up in peer group. This is the way we do it, and we have to do it this way. If there's the ability to navigate of how can we do this so it's going to be in the best interest of the couple, that can really serve you well. So we are out of time. Time just flies. Thanks everyone for joining us. This will be posted probably Monday because it's Friday afternoon. But this will be posted on the website. We've had some great special editions this week too, so check those out. And Debbie will be back first and third weeks of the month. Debbie's here and Matt's here the second and fourth. So join anytime you can. Thank you. Bye.
Okay.